So much to discuss here on the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast as the schedule is coming out. We're finding out who exactly the Kansas City Chiefs are going to be playing. We've also got news of our own, news on both podcasts tonight. We'll get into here in a little bit. Jeffri Chadiha from the NFL Network, Soren Petro with you. We'll talk about the Chiefs and Ravens. We know two games. Chiefs up and already a 2.5-point favorite over Baltimore. They get the point spread right. Bengals in week 2. Hey, 2 home games means that they've got 9 road games in 14 after that bye week, 9 road games, 1 bye in 15 weeks. What are the playoff odds for the rest of the AFC West, the rest of the AFC? Who are the real challengers for the Kansas City Chiefs? Who are their biggest threats? We'll talk about that. What games on the schedule should concern the Kansas City Chiefs? And MVS has a landing spot. It'll be a little bit chillier. He's headed to Buffalo. We talk about it all right now here on the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast.
You're listening to the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast, the most in-depth analysis of the Kansas City Chiefs on planet Earth, breaking down the Chiefs like no one else can. Red, Gold, and Bold is hosted by Jeffri Chadiha, Eric Eager, and Soren Petro. Jeffri Chadiha is a senior columnist and on-air personality for the NFL Network and NFL.com. Eric Eager is the vice president of research and development for Sumer Sports. Soren Petro was the afternoon drive host of the program on Sports Radio 810 WHB in Kansas City. The Red, Gold, and Bold podcast is proudly brought to you by Gann Asphalt and Concrete, Kansas City's nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor, making parking lot problems disappear since 1994. Free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews, and every project comes with a written warranty. Find them online at GannAsphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Gann Asphalt and Concrete. One contractor, all things parking lot. Now, here are the hosts of the best Chiefs podcast, Jeffri Chadiha, Eric Eager, and Soren Petro.
And thank you very much, Curtis. We do appreciate it. Always a pleasure. Jeffri Chadiha, Soren Petro. You'll notice no Eric Eager. If you follow the news around the NFL, Jeff, most people would know there's a reason why Eric Eager's not here. He'll be with us, we believe, maybe next week, and it'll be to say goodbye, right? Sad news, but happy news, exciting news. It got leaked out somewhere that Eric Eager has been hired by the Carolina Panthers, vice president of analytics for the Carolina Panthers, and a tremendous opportunity for him, and we certainly wish him the best. It's going to be sad to see him go. We're working on some things. We'll probably be having someone else join us. Maybe, I don't know, at least not tonight. It'll just be Jeff and I. So much love to our buddy Eric Eager. Congrats to him. I think it's an itch, Jeff, that he always wanted to scratch, right? Wants to get into the league and compete for a ring. Now he gets a chance to do it.
Yeah, no, he's been dying to have this opportunity. And certainly when he got his PhD in math, he's talked to us about that, he never thought about it getting this far with him in his career, but the way his career has played out over the last few years with PFF and Sumer Sports and the contacts he's made and the impressions he's made on front offices, it was just a matter of time. So obviously we're very happy for him. Speaks well of us that one of our guys is getting scooped up by an NFL team. That's right. But, we'll miss him for sure.
Yeah, we'll definitely miss him. And listen, we do take it as a tremendous compliment. One, that we got to rub elbows with a guy that is highly thought of as someone who can help a team go win a championship. And so I think you hit on it. I do. I take it as a tremendous compliment. And that, we did I think, great work. The best we could do, certainly. I had a lot of fun. And I hopefully taught people some football, made people laugh about some football, had fun talking football, and did it with a guy who's an extraordinarily talented individual. And I know is going to do very successful at that next stop. And just pretty cool, man. Pretty cool to see somebody get a chance to, realize what became a dream. How many people get to actually do that?
Very few. Very few. I mean, you're talking about, the NFL is hard enough to break into. You've seen how hard it is for coaches who are experienced, for front office people. A chance like this only comes around every so often. And granted, it's not with, the Niners or the Chiefs, a team that's on top, but I imagine he will do a great job, and we will be hearing a lot about him throughout the course of the next few years.
Yeah, no doubt. So, Eric, I don't know if he's listening. He's pretty busy. Got a lot of things going on right now, but we love you, brother, and you always be a welcome. There's a welcome mat open for you anytime you want to join the podcast, and we're hoping that he'll get a chance to say goodbye. Like I said, it's a whirlwind. He's diving right into it like everything else he does. And so we hope to get him on the podcast in the very near future. We were hoping to get him on today, just couldn't make it work, but he'll be here at some point. So looking forward to that and looking forward to, maybe hearing a little bit about it, but he's the other side now, Jeff.
Mm-hmm.
Is he even going to talk to us anymore?
I don't know. We'll see. I mean, if we break any news out of Carolina, he's going to be the first guy they look at to see where it came from. But I think it's going to be hard for him. He's going to see how I feel now because he can't be the big Chiefs homer anymore. He's going to have to be all about the Panthers, all about the light blue and black and gray, and anything they say about the Chiefs, he's going to have to bite his tongue. So we'll see how it feels for him.
But this. Source for the Carolina Panthers front office believes luck is a first-order term in football. All of a sudden everybody's already taking their shots at him. Isaiah Pacheco's now good. Yeah. Love how things get changed around now when you get to the other side. Let's get started with the schedule. A couple things have come out. I don't know, leaked out, they put out. Let's say we know what the opening weekend is: Chiefs versus Ravens. Then Chiefs Bengals week 2. Let's start with the Ravens. Could they have found a better matchup? Are you surprised this is the matchup?
No, I'm not surprised. I was doing some radio in Baltimore a few weeks ago. They'd asked me if the Ravens made the most sense. And I thought, who else? Maybe the Bengals, who are obviously week 2, but the Ravens, the way the last season ended, all the questions about their play calling and Lamar winning an MVP and can he still do it? I mean, that was a lot of, obviously it was a very physical game and a game that was filled with a lot of dramatic moments. It feels like these two teams are going to see each other probably twice this coming season, in the regular season, in the playoffs. And so why not start off with a heavyweight matchup? I think it's a great, you got two-time MVP against a two-time MVP, the two best teams in the AFC. Why not start off with a bang?
Yeah, and it is like, are you surprised this is where they went? Listen, there were a handful of games. This one, Bengals, Texans, to me, were really your 3 games. The Niners, a Super Bowl rematch, although that hasn't been what they've wanted to do here lately. They did it, Denver, Carolina rematched it, I think, the year after they played in the Super Bowl, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. But it hasn't been really the direction they wanted to go. This is obviously a very worthy game, a rematch of the AFC Championship game. But is this the one you thought it'd be?
Yeah, again, you could make a case for the Bengals, but there's still a lot up in the air about them right now. And you can make a case for the 49ers, but like you said, we've seen that matchup and we'll see it again later in the year. I think there's a lot more NFC games to be played, and the Niners certainly going to have a tough schedule of their own. And you begin to eliminate some of the teams that just wouldn't make sense at this point, like Buffalo, or I'm trying to think of who else is in there. They're playing the NFC South, so there's not a lot to work with in that department. You mentioned the Texans. Again, that's a better game late in the year because you want to see what they are. If they come out and they end up being a 7-10 team, that's not as exciting. So I think the best guarantee you're going to get for a great matchup and a team that's going to be good throughout the season is got to be Baltimore.
Yeah, no, it is. And you get Lamar Jackson versus Patrick Mahomes. I just thought they might want C.J. Stroud, right? The heir apparent. Like, to me, there's actually some pressure on this for Lamar Jackson, right? He's 1-4 against Patrick Mahomes in his career. If he comes in and wins, great. That's great news for him. It's great news for the league. Right now, Patrick Mahomes can take a lot of losses and before the shine starts to come off his star. But for C.J. Stroud, like, he needs to be successful. And if he comes out and loses now 1-5, that's where I thought they might protect the Lamar Jackson. Let him get 6-1, then come play the Chiefs. Okay, they're 6-2. He still looks like a star. And I know the NFL, as much as the conspiracy theory might think is otherwise, isn't necessarily about just making stars. But to me, it was a free roll with C.J. Stroud. Yeah. Right? You put him in. If he loses, well, he's only in his second year. So what's the fear there? I thought that could have been the game.
Well, One thing I'll say about that is they played that game. What was it like after the Chiefs won their first championship when Deshaun Watson was still a hot item in Houston? And that ended up being just a dog of a game to open the season with. I remember Clyde Edwards-Helaire had a big game there. Watson didn't do a whole lot. And again, I don't think this Texans team is the same category as that Houston Texans team was then. That seemed to be the beginning of the end for them. But yeah, I mean, to go back and have a repeat of a game that, even though it was 5 years ago, it still might feel like the people who make these decisions, they want to start with a home run. And they don't want to have a double. They don't want to have a bloop single. They want to have a home run. And when you can go out there, I mean, think about Lamar Jackson walking on this field at Arrowhead with Mahomes there, the trophy celebration, all that stuff going on. Just the narrative itself, the Ravens wanting to climb that mountain with Lamar and not being able to do it. I just think it's too easy. It's low hanging fruit for schedule makers.
2.5. Did the odds makers get it right?
Well, yeah. I mean, it's May, right? I mean, I think it's
May, but money will be wagered.
Yeah. I mean, I think these teams are I think they're even. I think that's about what it is to me. It's 2.5 probably is going to be where it's at. We still don't know what Rashee Rice is going to be. We still don't know what Hollywood Brown or Xavier Worthy are going to be in this offense. There's a lot of things to be considered. Again, but I think that, again, I've said this all year long, all offseason long, that the divide between the Chiefs and everybody else is not substantial. And so, yeah, 2.5 sounds about right.
Yeah, no, I can get there. I can get there, but it does mean that, like, on a neutral field, this is a pick 'em. Are you there? That's not the Super Bowl odds, right? If you look at the Super Bowl odds on these teams, and we'll get more into the odds and what we can take from it here in a little bit, but Super Bowl odds for the Kansas City Chiefs are plus 600 at 6-1, second only to the Niners at plus 550, 5.5 to 1, and the Baltimore Ravens, one of the favorites, plus 950. Yet they're saying this head-to-head game on a neutral field is pretty much even. Somewhat of an indictment, I guess, about the AFC North, if that's the point spread head-to-head, but the Chiefs are significantly better on the Super Bowl, or no? Just about who the people are going to bet on. Chiefs are the popular bet no matter what.
I think they tend to win in September. They tend to win their first games. I mean, there's only been one loss, right? That was last year, was the only loss they've had in this era of Mahomes and Reed together in a season opener. So, yeah, I would think that there would be a lot of people expecting them to come out and win, given that, again, a night to celebrate their success, a night where they're going to be at home, a night where Taylor Swift is going to be back in the building. Probably all this stuff is going to be going on around it. I mean, they're great in the fall, and so you can't really. But again, they're that great that you want to have somebody who can measure up to them, and that's the Ravens.
Red Gold and Bold podcast is proudly brought to you by our friends at Gann Asphalt and Concrete, nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor. Parking lot problems, they're not a problem. They've been making them disappear at Gann since 1994. Don't risk accidents and liability in your parking lot. Get your lot restriped today. A brightly striped lot cuts down on accidents. Make sure you've got your proper concrete bumpers, your signage. They do it all, whether it's building a brand new lot or fixing the one you got. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, one contractor, all things parking lot. Jeff, let's talk about week 2, Cincinnati Bengals. The big boys coming at them early, right? Like, you think this is just – look, I have no idea. Have you ever talked to anybody, written a story, done some background on how hard it is to put 32 teams into a 17-game schedule and make it all work? Like, do we make way too much out of who plays who when? And in reality, it's like it's hard to make this thing work.
Well, yeah, I mean, you're doing it for 17 teams, and you're trying to weight it in a way that allows the teams that weren't good to have a chance to be better, and to have the teams that were really good to really have more challenges in front of them. And so, yeah, it is much harder than what I think it is. I mean, I've heard stories about what they do in these rooms and how they get into their computers and try to spit out all these different algorithms and formulas that make sense. But I think ultimately you have to go play the games. I mean, if I look at it's obviously I work for the league and I'm a big promoter of it when it comes to this stuff. But I always laugh at how much these schedules matter now, but when you actually go play the games and see how they play out, the results tend to be a lot different. I mean, right now we can sit here and say the NFC South is going to suck because we know what Tampa's been and what the Saints have been and what the Panthers were, and but end of the day, they may be better. The Texans last year were a team. If they were on the Chiefs' schedule, you were writing that up as a win. And now you look at if they had played them, maybe that would have been the loss that might have dropped them, out of the division championship. And so, I'm always mindful of every year is different, and there's always different circumstances that come with that. And we're seeing that with the Chiefs already. Again with Rashee Rice and things happening with him. I mean, there are going to be injuries. There are going to be players who disappoint. There are going to be players who come out of nowhere. For every Isaiah Pacheco, there's probably going to be a Kadarius Toney. So I think that there is a lot that goes into this, but they ultimately end up getting it right and making it always interesting at the end.
How about this one? I didn't even give this any thought, and I actually do try to think about it. But somebody said loading up Baltimore. I mean, we knew they were going to get a good game to start, right?
Yeah.
That's just how that opening weekend works. But then following right up with Cincinnati is a way to make the penalty, whatever's coming for Rashee Rice, that much more impactful.
Oh, yeah.
You think they go that far into it?
No, I mean, that would be difficult, wouldn't it? Because then you're doing it for every team and trying to figure out where all that. I think it's end of the day, because you already know who the Chiefs are going to play, who the opponents are. You just don't know how it's going to stack up, right? So if you're putting the Niners and the Texans and the Bills and the Bengals and the Ravens and these teams that we've seen them play in the past, those are going to be tough games. And I know it's always fun to think, well, they're going to be 13-4, 14-3, 15-2, and nobody can stop this train. But all those teams that I mentioned, certainly can beat the Chiefs and certainly can contend for a championship. And it's just a matter of believing. I mean, you got to go what's on paper in front of you. You just can't look at all these other arbitrary things that might happen down the road or could happen down the road. You just got to go with this is where they are right now. This is what they've done. And let's figure out how to make it interesting when they play against teams this coming fall.
Yeah, no doubt. We're proudly brought to you by one of our brand new sponsors, Northland Injury Law, Casey's Google 5-star rated personal injury lawyers, helping people with serious injuries from car accidents, work accidents, falls, any serious personal injury. Attorneys have been serving KC for more than 40 years. Don't get paid. They don't get paid unless they get the money for their clients. That means you don't get paid. They don't get paid. Northland Injury Law, voted #1 accident lawyer in Kansas City. Don't wait. Get compensated now. If you have a case, text HURT. That's HURT, H-U-R-T, to 22222. Again, if you have a case right now, text HURT to 22222 or call 816-400-HURT. That's 816-400-4878 right now. Choice of a lawyer is an important one and should not be made solely upon advertisements. Text HURT to 22222 to get connected 24/7 to our friends at Northland Injury Law. Do you think the Bengals are going to be the Bengals? Like, are we making too big a deal of it?
Oh yeah, I think they are. I mean, I don't think it's like the Chiefs. As long as you've got that quarterback, you got a chance. As long as you got that receiver or those receivers, you got a chance. And it's easy to forget this now, but that was not an easy game that they won against the Bengals last year when they had a backup quarterback playing. I mean, that game was still a game in the fourth quarter. And so I imagine Joe Burrow is built in a lot of the same ways that Mahomes is, where you doubt him, you give him some kind of incentive, some kind of motivation to prove himself. He's going to come out on fire. And I would expect that from him after what he went through last year with the calf injury and with the wrist injury that ultimately ended his season, that he will come in here and be fired up to come play. Because that team really, before he got hurt, was starting to turn the corner and was starting to get people worried again about what they can become. And so if he can stay healthy, and I like what they've done, some of the moves they've made and the additions, and they're a lot like the Chiefs were a couple of years ago, where they've added some people that you may not know that much about and lost some bigger names, but they're still a well-coached team with a lot of talent that was, won the AFC a couple years ago.
Yeah. Now they're hell on wheels if they're healthy, and we'll see how healthy they are. They invested in that offensive line. They found out real quick what it looks like without Joe Burrow, and they doubled down on the previous year's investments on that offensive line. Let's talk a little bit about the playoff odds right now. If you take the playoff odds for just making the playoffs, right, and you say, okay, who's favored to make the playoffs in the AFC? I think it's interesting because this is basically who Vegas, the odds makers, feel are going to make the playoffs. These are the teams that are minus. In other words, favored to make the playoffs. Kansas City, minus 470. Just make it in any way, shape, or form. Minus 470. The Texans, minus 205. Ravens, minus 265. Bills, just minus 168. Those are your 4 division winners. Your wild cards, Miami, minus 162. Very close on winning the division. The Cincinnati Bengals, minus 240. Locked to make the playoffs and pretty close to the Baltimore Ravens. They think that one's going to be a fight. Chargers, minus 106, and the Jets, minus 124. That's who would be the first team out. Jacksonville Jaguars at plus 120. Do you believe that those are the real threats? Do you agree with those odds?
So you're saying Miami, the Chargers, and the Jets are the 3 wild card teams?
Wild cards are 4 wild cards, right?
No, 3.
Or no, 3. I'm sorry. Yeah, you have to leave the Chargers out. My bad. Okay. I put in 4. I thought it was baseball for a minute. Miami, Bengals, and Jets.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds right to me. I mean, now I wouldn't be surprised if of the teams of those 3 who are wild cards, I wouldn't be surprised if Miami gets bumped. I feel like they've plateaued, and their best chance to really make hay was this past year. I could see them being beaten out by the Jets or the Chargers. I think it'd be hard to see a third AFC North team make it. And so I think that's your safe with Baltimore and Cincinnati there. I think Cleveland might take a step back. But yeah, I mean, I think the Chargers will be sexy with Jim Harbaugh in the mix. The Jets, I'll be saying this a lot tonight, if they can stay healthy, should be in pretty good shape with Aaron Rodgers coming back. Even though he's older and coming off that Achilles, still dangerous and still motivated, still dangerous when motivated. And so, yeah, I like that. I like that group. I like that mix a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty good. It makes the Chargers and Jags top 2 teams out. After that, Cleveland, and then I think Pittsburgh. So that's kind of your group of contenders. Indianapolis would be next, plus 176. After that, you get to some pretty long shots on getting there. Vegas, Denver, Tennessee, and New England, obviously, way out of there. And, if you look at the opponents that the Chiefs have to play, let's take a look at the NFC West as well. They've got San Francisco and the Rams getting there. The Rams are just out. They're the first one not to make it. But they've got San Francisco, the favorite to make the playoffs, Seattle, Arizona. I mean, how difficult when this schedule comes out tomorrow, in whatever order they put it in? We know 2 of them. How difficult do you think it's going to be, particularly when I'll mention the fact again, 9 out of 14 on the road. I mean, that is like, you think about it, great but they only got 8 home games and they knocked 2 of them out at the start. I think it's going to be pretty tough with a schedule that it's got a lot of these teams on it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's hard to envision a schedule that has as many tough opponents. Even the Niners, you look at being in the NFC, they get a little bit of a break because it's not as strong of a conference. You don't have the same level of quarterback play. But yeah, it's going to be a tough road. And it's again, I wouldn't pick against this team doing anything because they've proven they can conquer just about anything that's put in front of them. And they really like the challenge of trying to prove people wrong. But I also feel like this is a team that's always played its best when they've been doubted and overlooked and minimized to a certain extent, or even, even called out. And so when they've got the target on their backs, they're a little bit different. And it's when you're facing these teams every week, they'll be ready to play these teams. But again, you just don't know how injuries are going to factor into it. You don't know when some of these teams are going to get better and smarter and tougher. I even think teams like Buffalo that people right off by saying, look what they've lost. But end of the day, that quarterback's still there, and they're still a well-coached team. And then they still got playmakers. And so it's there, there's not going to be a lot of easy outs for the Chiefs this season.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to put it. And I want to correct something. I mean, I looked at the Niners and said they're playing the NFC West. They do play the Niners. That's their finisher. That's their 17th game. They play the NFC South. I've been looking at too many teams, too many schedules, future schedules, trying to figure things out. But they play the NFC South. Atlanta, heavy favorite to win that division, minus 245. Tampa plus to make the playoffs, minus 245. To win the division, they are favored against the field at minus 120. Then Tampa, New Orleans, and Carolina. So that is a little bit easier, but they do have to play the 49ers. And here's the other thing about the schedule, Jeff. You know they're going to get hit with a ton of primetime games.
Yeah.
Like what is it last year?
No.
They didn't repeat a start time.
Yeah.
So like week 7, 8, something like that.
Yeah.
You know they're going to start with a Thursday nighter. That's going to be a unique game. You know they're going to get a Monday nighter, 2, 3. They're going to get a couple of Sunday night games. They're probably going to get a Saturday. Like they've made it look easy, but it can't be as easy as they make it look. Like coaches are a habit of routine. I think that might be the most underrated thing of this team's success, and certainly Andy Reid, his ability to handle basically any kind of schedule they want to throw at him.
Yeah. I mean, I think they've been the masters of preparation, of knowing how to be ready for anything, and they're taking advantage of. Look, I look at the last half of last season. I mean, really, I'm not saying this is why they won those games, but they've really never had to deal with the injury bugs that other teams have had to deal with. I mean, I think what they faced like 3 or 4 backup quarterbacks in the last 5 or 6 games of the season, which is crazy, And then you're talking about getting into the playoffs, and you've got teams that are beaten up, and we always hear them talk about how Andy Reid's training camps are so tough because he's preparing them for these kinds of rigors over the course of a year, and it's proven out that as time has gone by and they've gotten deeper in the season, they've been able to be the healthier team, which is ultimately the biggest factor in whether you succeed or not, in the playoffs. So, but yeah, I think they do a great job of being prepared and understanding how to deal with what comes with being the king. Like they look at every last scenario and try to prepare for that.
I'll talk about the NFC playoff teams here in 1 second. First, I'll let you know another one of our brand new sponsors. We're happy to welcome our friends at Besame Wellness.
Besame Wellness, online or curbside. Shop daily at Besame Wellness for all your cannabis needs. Open Monday through Saturday, 9 to 9, Sundays, 10 to 6. Locations in North Kansas City, Liberty, Smithville on Berry Road, and in Warrensburg. Even delivery for medical marijuana. Getting your cannabis has never been easier. We at Besame Wellness strive to make your life as easy as possible and cannabis as accessible as possible.
NFC odds, Jeff. These are the teams they have making the playoffs. I want to see if you agree with this. Chiefs will face the Niners and Falcons, as we mentioned. Those two are division winners. Nobody else from the NFC West, although the Rams are the first team out. But Detroit, Green Bay, Chicago, and Philadelphia, with the Cowboys and Lions being division champs. So, again, I did that poorly. Cowboys, Lions, Falcons, Niners, 4 division champs. 3 wild cards: Eagles, Packers, Bears. Did they get it right?
Yeah. I mean, the only thing I would say would be the Rams are pretty sneaky with what they have going for themselves. Yeah, Tampa's solid. It's going to either be Tampa or the Falcons. Yeah, I mean, they won it last year, but they won it by a game, and so does Kirk Cousins make that big a difference? I imagine there's a chance he can. I'm a little worried about the Falcons' defense and what they didn't do in the draft. I know they picked up some guys, but they passed on getting, Dallas Turner, who had the biggest impact on their pass rush. But yeah, I mean, the thing about the NFC is that you're really talking about 3, maybe 4 legit Super Bowl teams, and everybody else is just there to just fill out the bracket. Yeah. So it's like I don't get as enamored about some of those teams at the bottom of it because I feel like they really have a shot. I mean, you could pick 4 or 5 wild card candidates, and they'd all still be in the same boat by the time you got to the divisional round.
How many teams do you think actually can win the Super Bowl?
Really have a shot in the NFC or overall?
Overall. Just
Overall?
total. How many can actually win it all? 3, 4 playoff games in a row, go through whoever they need to go through. How many are actually live to get it done?
Well, Chiefs. I would take Chiefs, Ravens. I would take Bengals. I would take Bills. That's where I'd stop in the AFC.
Okay.
In the NFC, I'd go. I think the Eagles are back in the mix with what they've done in this offseason.
Okay.
The Packers, the Lions, the Niners, Cowboys. They've got enough talent to do it. They've lost some people, and people obviously get down on Mike McCarthy. But I'd put them in the mix as a dark horse. I wouldn't put them in as above those other 4 teams. But I would say you probably got 10 total.
You didn't have the Chargers. You didn't have the Jags.
Mm-mm.
You didn't have the Dolphins.
No.
You didn't have the Jets.
No. Jets, maybe. Jets are kind of in the same boat as the Cowboys, just because you've got to really have a lot of things go right for you. But if they do go right, it wouldn't surprise me at all.
Tommy says Chiefs, Ravens, Niners, Eagles, Lions. That's it.
Yeah, well, he's a pessimist, right?
That's
the ghost of Eric Eager talking.
Yeah, he's a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Now, are we talking about win it or actually get there?
Win it all.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, Tommy, you and I have got problems because now Eric's not there to take all the brunt of Tommy's crap.
Yeah, Tommy's coming this way now.
Yeah, we're gonna have to take it now. No, listen, I mean, I do think, and in the schedule, we know the opponents, but seeing the order does matter. But yeah, I do think the Chargers, first year coaches have gone there. They've done it, and he's a guy who's been there. They've got the quarterback. I don't love. I understand why they jettison the wideouts, and I think they're thinking big picture, but I think Jacksonville's kind of sneaky. Like if you look at Super Bowl odds, plus 4,500, 45 to 1, that's pretty good value. Like I don't like betting anyone to win the Super Bowl unless it's your team and you just want to be rooting for your squad. But I don't like betting anyone to win the Super Bowl unless they're at least 15 to 1 because I don't think there's any value in tying up your money. 45 to 1, Trevor Lawrence is taking some lumps. They stumbled down this. Like if there are lessons to be learned, they've learned them.
My concern with Jacksonville is just there's been enough young quarterbacks who've come into the league over the last 2 or 3 years that really I think are better than Trevor Lawrence. And so to me, the whole appeal of picking them is the idea that Trevor Lawrence can really elevate this team and become what he was preordained to be. And I don't know if that's going to happen now. Like, I feel like he's starting to trend more towards a Matt Ryan type career than a Peyton Manning type career. And that's no knock on him, but I look at just what Jordan Love has done. I look at what CJ Stroud has done. I look at what Brock Purdy has done. And I just don't see him in that same group right now because for whatever reason, I just think there's too many obstacles. And unless he can really change the way he plays or the way he impacts the games, I think he's always going to lose to the guys who are the bigger stars in the league.
2 other teams I'll mention, Cleveland, 40 to 1, and Pittsburgh, 50 to 1. Not because I think they're going to win, but the Browns, I think this will be the last chance for Deshaun Watson to be Deshaun Watson, to knock the rust off and be the quarterback he used to be. And I can see that happening. So 40 to 1, there's value. I think the rest of the roster is pretty good. So I think there's some value there. And then Pittsburgh, if Russell Wilson can click, he played pretty good football. We argued about this. I did anyway with Eric. He didn't think he was playing that well, but statistically speaking, numbers were pretty good early on with the Broncos. If he can click, I think Pittsburgh's done a lot of things right this offseason. They have the coach in place. So 50 to 1, only because I give value. Like if you have $100 to bet all year, don't bet $50 on it. Bet $2 on each team. Don't tie up your bankroll. But I think those are the sleeping ones. Everybody else, a little bit rough. And if you want to throw in a bet for the Panthers, for Eric, new juice,
Yeah.
300 to 1.
That's the worst, right?
It is the
Or is
longest
Arizona?
odds. Yeah. It is the longest. Plus 30,000. So I will say this. It's actually not that foolish. The more I think about it, a former 1-1, I mean, like,
Jacksonville?
no, Carolina.
Oh, Carolina.
I'm saying with Bryce Young, year 2, it clicks. That happens
Yeah.
for quarterbacks.
Yeah, you must have missed some of their games then.
No, listen, I don't think it's going to
Seen in
happen. But
person, yeah.
I'm just talking about for money value.
Mhm.
For money value. There's a little something there.
Yeah.
I will give them that. What teams? By the way, we're brought to you by Gann Asphalt and Concrete. Free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews. Every project comes with a written warranty. Gann Asphalt keeps your parking lot safer, helps you and your business avoid unnecessary delays and costly expenses. Find them online at GannAsphalt.com. Call 816-484-3338. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, one contractor, all things parking lots. What games on the Chiefs, what opponents, should I say, on the Chiefs schedule should scare them?
Oh, the first two, clearly. I mean, there's a legitimate chance you can start 0-2. Just for those two teams, even though they're coming here, and that's why those teams aren't scared of coming here. They're not scared of the Chiefs. They played the Chiefs enough times and had some level of success against them. So it's like, yeah, that is not going to be a factor for them. The Chargers are going to be sneaky within the division. The Texans are going to be tough if they're able to continue and build on what they've done in the past, because now you've got, we talk about Stroud, man, but their pass rush, when you get Danielle Hunter coming down there to play alongside Will Anderson Jr., now you've got some bookends who can really give you some problems, athletic guys, when you're talking about young tackles like Jamar Taylor and Sua Matea. Right? I say that right? Am I saying that right? Sua Matea. Close enough.
Yeah.
I'm going on that Polynesian road again. It was rough last week for me. But yeah, I think those teams, I think you're talking about the Niners, who obviously played them really tough and had a chance to beat them in the Super Bowl. And Buffalo's always tough. I mean, it feels like the Muhammad Ali type factor, where you've seen all these people fight him. It's Joe Frazier, Ken Norton, George Foreman. And so it's a matter of who actually, after all these experiences with them, can actually capitalize. And so that's what makes it dangerous. And you don't know defensively, are they going to be as good as they were last year? That's really a big question, that they have the makings of it, but they still got to go out and play that at that level.
Muhammad Ali was a 3-time champ, right?
Yeah.
Maybe 4. I might be wrong. It might be 4. Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs, this incarnation of the Chiefs, 3-time champs. I was going to be like, Muhammad Ali, pretty good parallel. If you were to rank the threats, how would you rank them? You want to hear mine?
Yeah.
It's like most likely to lose. Games most likely to lose. I'd go at San Francisco 1, Ravens at home 2, Bengals at home 3, Bills at home 4, at the Chargers 5, Texans at home 6. I think those are the 6 games. And the Chiefs will probably go 4-2 and then blow, 2 other games they should win.
Yeah.
Everybody does, right? That's just the league. And then we'll find out. Maybe there's a third one of those. There's a game I'm not thinking somebody's better that I'm not seeing over the horizon, or they mail in the last game because their spot is locked up. But that's it. At San Fran, Baltimore, Bengals, Bills, at Chargers, Texans. That's my top 6 in order.
Yeah. If I'm ranking them in order, I'm going San Francisco first, then the Ravens. Actually, San Francisco, Bengals, Ravens. I still feel like the Bengals, when they're healthy, are a tougher matchup for them. I feel like Spagnuolo has, he's kind of in Lamar Jackson's head and has a really good feel for how to handle him and contain him. Whereas with Joe Burrow, he's just an assassin, And
Yep.
so it's like having Mahomes on the other side. he's going to make plays and just beat you. And so I think I go Niners, Bengals, Ravens, Bills, Texans, Chargers. I feel like they're going to split with the Chargers.
Yeah, I think so too. I think Jim Harbaugh is gonna drag him into the mud, and you're gonna have to rock fight the Chargers now every time. And I don't know how good the Chiefs are at that, right? Like I think that's a pretty good game plan to at least give a try coming into the Chargers.
And that's why you get rid of those receivers. I mean, I think you want guys who are just, you don't need to have stars. You need to have guys who want to go out there and be blue collar about it.
Yeah, and I think those and they've taken up a lot of cap room, and they're getting up there. I mean, definitely Keenan Allen's getting up there. I said it before. The Bears-Chargers deal with Keenan Allen is a good deal for both teams. Right? I get it. Both teams, they're going different directions. I think it's a good deal for both teams. Let's close with this. MVS lands in Buffalo. Good landing spot for MVS?
Well, clearly he was not in major demand. So
1 year, up to, meaning he's not even guaranteed.
Yeah.
Who knows what the guarantee is? I haven't seen that yet. Maybe you have. But up to $4.5 million compared to the 3 for $30 he got 2 years ago from the Chiefs. How the mighty have fallen.
Yeah. Well, and it also shows you there's a lot of talk about why didn't the Bills take Xavier Worthy, or they got fleeced by the Chiefs once again. Clearly, they didn't want somebody to do more than just run wind sprints. So they figure that's what he can do. And to be honest with you, I feel as if an underrated part of his game was his willingness to block. And so that may be part of it too. Like, hey, we need somebody who's going to go downfield and get in people's way. And I don't think he's going to be a huge factor for them in the same way he wasn't a huge factor for this team. I think it's more about just trying to open up things for Keon Coleman, open up things for their tight ends, Dawson Knox and Dalton Kincaid, and even James Cook. I mean, those are the guys who are going to be catching the ball and touching the ball a lot in that offense. So, I don't think I think it's like, it was like Sammy Watkins going to the Ravens. He just didn't do a whole lot.
By the way, Brad and John, keep me on my toes. Chiefs are at the Bills. You are correct. My bad. I wrote it down wrong. I still have it fourth, though. I do think the Bills back up a little bit. I still have it as the fourth game. I had it in the rankings, but I wrote it down wrong on my sheet. And MVS doesn't scare me, obviously, as being a part of that equation. But, I will say this. I think, first of all, I don't even know how much he's going to play. Right? Like, I think he could be a cut. Like, I'm interested to see what the base is. They didn't even make the team. But what is it about the Chiefs in overpaying for wideouts? Is it just the reality of we have to have this guy, Sammy Watkins, MVS, and even though they're overpaying it, they know they're overpaying it, and the guy's never going to live up to the contract? Or do you think that they thought this guy would be what that contract was? Both those guys will be what that contract is. People accuse Brett Veach of having a blind spot for wideouts. Well, he was part of the equation on Tyreek Hill. He was, from a football standpoint, they drafted Rashee Rice, but they haven't knocked it out of the park consistently. Do you think they really thought those guys would live up to the contract? Was it just a matter of this is the last piece of the offense, we're willing to overpay to get it?
I feel like it's like when you go shopping for furniture and you see a sofa or an ottoman or a dinette set, and you're like, that's not going to be in my house. Like, I don't want that. But then someone comes by and it's like, hey, this works for me. Like, I got a plan for this. I'm going to make it work. And you go to their place and you're like, hey, this actually comes together. I think they go out and they find things based on Andy Reid's vision. And that probably changes a little bit every year based on what he wants to do or how he wants to change stuff up. But yeah, I think they clearly are not in the market of going out and just finding players who they think can be good wideouts, because if they were, they'd have Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua running routes for them, right? Yeah. They have an idea about certain skills they like. And so it's really more about how that all fits together as opposed to how these people are individually. So to answer your question, no, I think they overpay to make Andy happy. And if he's happy, then everybody's happy.
We're proudly brought to you here on the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast by Gann Asphalt and Concrete. 30 years. Gann Asphalt and Concrete has been your one-stop shop for all things parking lot, whether you're building a new lot or you just have problems with yours. Brightly striped lots, get them striped. You don't need to be spending time away from your business, dealing with the crashes out in the parking lot. Get it brightly restriped. The handicap spots prominently marked. The right signage takes away from that liability issue from you and your business. Gann Asphalt and Concrete online at GannAsphalt.com. For Jeff Chadiha and, yes, even our buddy Eric Eager, I'm Soren Petro saying thank you very much for joining us here on the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast.